How many of you right now are doing tasks that are probably $30, $40, maybe $50 an hour tasks? You're worth $100, $200, $300, $400 an hour. There is like a calculatable way to look at how many hours a person is potentially could be creating for your business. If you don't have them recruited, what's lost in revenue? And then there's this question of like, do I get the work first or do I hire the person first? I will push a lot of people and say, go hire the person first and you will be forced to get the work. It's a good motivator. And especially if you stay stuck in the safety rhythm for too many years, it's like, go get that person, we're gonna go figure out the work.
This episode is a recording of a presentation we did at Build Show Live. To download the resources mentioned in this episode and more information about joining Breakthrough Academy, check out the link in the description. You're watching Contractor Evolution, the podcast by Breakthrough Academy, where we systemize contracting businesses for growth. Keep watching to learn how the world's top contractors scale their companies, build killer teams, and make more while working less.
Okay, let's talk project management. We have an hour together. I've assembled, I would say, four principles, or four ideas that some of you probably do to some level, and I hope at the end of it, give you kind of a little bit of a chance to see what you can improve on. Maybe some things you don't do at all, or some things that you are doing, you could probably do a little bit better. So everything we talk about today, I'm going to also give you guys a resource on. So we're going to talk a bit about project management employment agreements. How many have a employment agreement for your project manager specifically, detailed out? Okay, we will give you one today. So it's fairly detailed, but it gets into specifically what their role is, what it is not, who they report to, what their pay structure should look like. And how many of you have project managers hired right now? Probably could use that for. Okay, awesome. So we'll give you one of those. We're also going to get into something called GSNR, stands for goal setting and review. How many of you set goals with your project managers on a regular cadence? Got like a way to do it? Okay, a couple of you. Cool. So I'll give you a little form to help with that. We're going to talk about project communications. So the expectations meeting you should have with the customer beforehand. How many of you have something like that set up before the project starts? A couple, okay. And then we're going to talk a little bit about during the project, what the communication process should look like, and have a little form for that. So as we go through these concepts, I'll give you a little QR code at the very end. You can download all this stuff. We'll go through theory today, and then you can play around with it at your office at the end. So that'll be the plan. My name is Danny Kerr. I've been in business since I was 18 years old. I started in a franchise organization, which saved my bacon because I am not, it's funny, we teach systems and our whole organization does. We have about 55 people on our team. I am one of them, but I am not a systems person. I am an entrepreneur at heart. How many of you started the business? Like this was your baby, you started from scratch, this was your, yeah. So what I've found for a lot of us is we're really good with people. We're really like imaginative, we're very creative. But we struggle with detail and processes. How many of you struggle with that naturally? It's just not your thing? Okay, cool. Me too. So from 18 to about 28 years old, I was in this franchise organization where they trained the hell out of me to teach me how to sell, how to market, how to hire people, how to develop myself. And over time, I started to see there's like potential inside of me as an entrepreneur that was completely untapped. By the time I was 28, I had 100 staff under me. I had multiple franchises across the US and Canada that I was helping build. And I was like, man, I don't think most people have access to this. Like as an entrepreneur, we're kind of tasked to invent this ourselves, right? If you go to school to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, there's like a path to go, but for entrepreneurship, there's not. So in 2015, we started something called Breakthrough Academy, which is focused on contractors, because that was my background. And we started to think about how do you build a franchise level system and a support process for contractors without them having to buy a franchise. So that's what we do now. We've been doing it for about 10 years. We've worked with about 1,900 businesses. And what I'll talk about today is some of the stuff that I found, the simplest stuff I would say that I found is the most heavy hitting for a business to implement. So within an hour, I'll give you 4 of them, and I would say probably pick one. So we'll start with some red flags, just some signs of, hey, your project management might be leaking a little bit. How many of you feel like there's like leaking profit going on in the jobs right now as we speak? Yeah, so we'll talk about that. We'll get into the 4 systems I just talked about, agreements, dashboards, goal setting dashboards, project communication, and the use of software. And then we'll wrap up and we'll get into that if we have time. We might get into a little bit about hiring as well. I'm doing another session on PM hiring tomorrow, so I'll touch on that a little bit. So some of you, how many of you are the project manager? This is like your gig. Cool. And how many of you have 1 to 4 to 3, like you manage project managers? Okay. There'll be different things for different people in different sizes of businesses. I would say just take one thing from today. I'll give you a download of all this stuff, but just pick one that you're actually going to use and make sure that gets implemented. So Who has produced an epic project before that you loved, but at the end it made absolutely no money for you? Maybe even cost you a little bit of money. I was listening to Matt talk about this earlier at the VIP meeting, and I was like, dude, yeah, that is almost everyone in the room. There's a reason for it, right? There are lots of things that come up along the way. We've all probably had this, right? Mismanaged labor, subs, overspending on our materials, mismanaged change orders. How many of you have been stuck paying for a change order that you didn't catch in time? Probably almost all of us, right? Scope creep. And what this leads to is obviously our net profit is low. When we pull industry stats, or even some of our members coming in, we see an average of about 2 to 4% net profit in a construction business. That's industry average. That's pretty razor thin margins. Like not a lot, it doesn't take a lot to topple that business. What is sustainable, if you guys are wondering, like what is good, what is like acceptable, I would say 10 to 15%. We have some people making net 20, some even making net 30, but 10 to 15% is a reasonable, sustainable profit margin to go off of. And where that other 10% roughly goes is in a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today. How many of you have felt this before? Projects going over schedule, it's a silent killer to one of the most impactful parts of your ability to make profit. Rial is one of our construction coaches. He'll probably speak a little bit today too, but I asked him to go through some numbers with me to just look at what the average $500,000 job looks like. That's pegged at a 25% gross profit margin, right? So that's the profit after labor, subs, and materials and so on. And what's the difference between that job being produced in 8 months versus 5 months? Well, it's literally half the profit if it's done in 8 months versus 5 months, because the overhead is eating away at that project every single month that it's still on the books being produced. You guys have felt this before? Have you seen this before in your company? Money does love speed. And the more well-managed and well-oiled that machine is, although sometimes we might be okay with projects running longer, maybe we don't have as much to fill the schedule, it costs us quite a bit because the overhead slowly eats away what profit was allocated to that. Does that make sense? And what I find is at the center of all of this is our project management, is our project managers. Their understanding of what their role is, what they should be doing every day, their rhythms and routines, and how they can keep the job efficient and communicate right from what the owner thinks needs to be done to the job itself to the customer. And how does that communication channel get done properly so things can stay and not get stuck? So let's go through these building blocks. The first one, like I said, employment agreements. So pretty self-explanatory. These should define what the role of the and the responsibilities of this person is. What parts of the workflow are they in charge of? It's different than a site super. It's different than not project manager, a production manager. They're kind of sitting in the middle, right? And they've got a specific set of duties that they need to do their job. It should hold accountability over what they're directly in control of, instead of all the random other things that come along the way. And it gets rid of a lot of that's not my job stuff. Like, this is your job, this is not your job. And this is what I need you hyper-focused on. So to build these, before we go to pen and paper, I often get people, a lot of our members, to start with this. How many of you have built this before? It's like an organizational structure. It kind of shows who reports to who does what. How I'd recommend you start this is actually think about the KPIs or the numbers, or what we call up here, the deliverables, that role should be directly in charge of, right? So this is just an example, but showing them trying to produce 2.5 million out of 25% GP and maintaining a quality rating of 8 out of 10. One just side note on numbers or KPIs that you give a job. We often will pair them with a quality, volume, and profit metric. Because if it's all volume, what's going to happen? Probably do it unprofitably and piss your customer off for the longer process. If it's all quality, they're really obsessed about quality, profit can often slip, right? But I find all three in conjunction help hold a project manager to think like, how do I do this job on time and on budget, right? So we got to break this down. We got to break these numbers down. There are many variances of this, right? It's not just those three numbers, but here's things that if you're considering like a KPI or a number for a project manager, things you might want to look at. So revenue produced is a very obvious one. Gross profit per project, I would say that's a pretty obvious one. If they run crews internally, how many of you have your own crews that you manage as well? Crew productivity, hours goals versus actuals. Schedule versus actuals for the reason I was just talking about, right? 8-month jobs versus 5-month for the same job. Massive impact on profit or net. Net promoter, which is a quality rating score. How many of you know what net promoter is? I can explain it. It's essentially how many customers would go above and beyond to recommend you to others. And so it's a rating out of 10. If they give you I think it's a 9 or a 10, you get a +1 point. Or sorry, 8, 9, or 10, I think you get a +1 point. 7 is neutral, and 6 and below is a negative point. You add all that up and you'll see what percentage of people would recommend you to others. And obviously safety incidents, right? If you think about it, like these are the things that they're directly in charge of versus indirectly. I threw up some other ones just for example, right? But they're not in charge of your cash flow. They're not in charge of your fixed costs. They're not in charge of the revenue for the whole company. They're probably not in charge of hires, mostly. They're not in charge of company profit, and they're certainly not in charge of the sales ratios, right? But these are the things that they have direct control over. So we then want to take what we've decided and pop that into an employment agreement. So this is the first resource I'm going to give you guys today. And it's fairly detailed, but I'll give you some sections that are important. So a lot of us will get our employment agreements from a lawyer, or we'll download it from Google, or we'll use ChatGPT. How many have done one of these three? We've structured a document that works well for this role, and there's a few components that matter. So the first thing is what I've just been talking about the entire time. The entire agreement is structured off of the deliverables, right? So this person is trying to produce or looking to produce $2.5 million in production at a 25% gross profit margin, maintain a customer service rating of 8 out of 10. They have a training and development role. They need to maintain a 3 out of 5 on all project manager comp models, which means they're scoring on how they're doing in their job, and they have to complete all administrative tasks by the end of the week. So of everything that that person's job is, these are the numbers that reflect whether they're doing a good job or a bad job, right? It's objective. We then need to take these deliverables and we need to bake them into their accountabilities. These are the tasks, right? So if you think about like, what is your job? These are the things that someone would say like, I help maintain the customer relationships. I help make sure the crews are scheduled on time. I make sure that the subs are invoicing on time. Like they take care of the details, right? These are the accountabilities. But the way that we've listed them is they're tied to a deliverable. So for the deliverable one, aka 2.5 million at a 25% margin, here's all the specific parts of your job that pertain to that number. Does that kind of make sense? For deliverable 2, maintaining a happy customer, aka 8 out of 10 on average quality rating experience, here's all the customer service responsibilities that you have. So now when something's going awry on the job or going well on the job, we can tie it back to a number. It's an objective truth. Hey, your ratings are at 7 out of 10 on average right now. Hey, we're trending to produce 2 million, not 2.5. And let's look at your responsibilities and see where we're actually missing. You see the clarity that's slowly getting formed? Okay. Now we'll take it a little further. This person can review this, sign it, and probably forget about it. So there needs to be some element of reporting going on an ongoing basis. So who do you report to? What do you report on? How often are you reporting on these things? And this is agreed upon ahead of time. If you don't, what happens to that project manager when they're super busy? They don't want to report on anything. They're like, it's Friday, man. Like, I'm doing enough paperwork. This gets established early on, okay? And finally, to make sure what's good for them is what's good for you as an organization, there's a tie back to the KPIs of the numbers they need to achieve, the deliverables, and their bonus package, right? So you have a base salary and a set of bonuses that you can achieve, but they're all tied back to the deliverables that you're directly in charge of achieving. What are we doing in this scenario when we're setting an agreement up this way? Beyond the legal agreement of I'm employing you, what is all this stuff? Accountability. Accountability around a performance-driven culture, right? We're trying to achieve something together, trying to win the championship. This is what it looks like. Let's define it ahead of time. And then I'm going to be there with you to drive it as we go through the year. Have you guys ever heard of discretionary effort? I did an interesting podcast with a guy who was talking about performance culture and how there's 40% of what we call discretionary effort in most employees that is untapped unless you set up this type of structure for people where they can go achieve their goals for their own purposes. Have you noticed this in your business? There's like 20% of people that tend to do 80% of the work. They're giving you likely their discretionary effort. Other people you're like dragging across the finish line, they're likely not. They're showing up for a paycheck. There's nothing more in it for them. Why would they work hard? Cool? Which episode is that? I don't even know if it's out yet. It's on Recruit, Train, Hire. It's actually not even out yet. I filmed it. It probably will come out, don't quote me, November to December it'll come out. So I should know.
So those early recordings.
We do a lot of recording. I've recorded everything to March, actually. Okay. So these are these agreements. They're about 11 pages long. You don't have to use all of them, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this as a resource so you can thumb through it. You can use the whole thing. There's a template and an example file, so you can go look at a done version and then plug in your specifics as well. And you can also just cut and paste whatever you'd like if you have your current agreements as well. Okay, so we've established the goals. We've established the rules of the game with our project manager. Now what's next? We need to do something called GS&R, which stands for goal setting and review. This is your job now as an owner or as a manager of your PMs to become their coach, not their boss. And if you think about today's generation, that is more what we're all looking for, right? We don't want to just be told what to do every day. We don't want to have a transactional relationship with a company where we just get paid a paycheck to do our job. We want to be a part of something. We want to feel like we're achieving something. We want to know our part to play in it. We want to celebrate success, and we want to be developed, right? So you need to turn into that type of person. And this is a great structure to do it in. It's a weekly or bi-weekly meeting that's scheduled ahead of time. It's fixed, which is massive because these things can often get bumped if they're not scheduled. This is the one thing in my calendar that is like put on repeat for the entire year. So usually I do them on Mondays. It keeps a pulse on what's happening in the business so the owner can keep an understanding of what's happening down to their down legs. So this is done with production. This is also done with sales if you have a sales leg or administrative leg. It helps you hold accountability to these goals so they become real. Every 2 weeks, we're meeting around them and seeing where you're at, goal versus actual, goal versus actual. Provide some direction and support because often they're going to have goals that they're going to go after that maybe are the right goals. So they're going to have an approach to hit those goals that they don't have all the experience they need to get there, and you're going to be there to help guide that along the way. And obviously helps you manage their performance. So I'll give you an example of this as well. It's, I think there's an example in a template in there. Don't quote me, but it's basically got a list at the very top. And actually what I'll do, we'll put one up for you, of their annual deliverables front and center. So it's kind of like, hey, here's what we agreed upon in our employment agreement. Up here. Based on that, let's talk about this basically every 2 weeks for the entire year until we hit these goals. It's got the company values off to the right. I always start by having them fill this out. So they usually fill this out on a Friday and we'll have a meeting on a Monday. Well, it starts with like, how you feeling? Are you up? Are you down? Where are you at? I often find meetings where I understand the energy of my people go way better when I actually know if they're up or they're down. If I'm just going right into numbers, trust me, they'll turn the brain off a lot. We'll get into that in a second. But then talking about action steps, what they did last week, what their goals are for next week, and we're keeping tabs on the projects, right? So what's the contracted amount? What's the targeted GP? What's our percent of complete? Are we on jet schedule? Are we on budget? What are the milestones for the next week or two ahead? Any other things we need to talk about with that project? Simple. But it's the consistency that makes all the difference. Does it kind of make sense? We've got more advanced tracking files where they can track every month where they're at. They can see goal versus actual on a running tally with numbers. But at its simplest form, it's a place to fill out where things are going, well, not well on projects, and have a conversation about them. Once a week, once every 2 weeks. Without this, projects can go on for months, only to realize suddenly, hey, we are way off. How did we get here? Right? So best practice is your PM fills this out on a Friday. They think through their projects or project that they're in charge of. They have some time to reflect. They set their goals for the next week ahead, and they submit that to you Friday night. You, owner or lead or production manager, you would basically review it on a Monday morning. Where are my teams at? What's their goals? And you can see some warning signs. You're writing your own notes and things you want to have discussions around. Their goals for the next week or two may not be the final goals. You might be thinking, I need to adjust that and that, make sure everything goes on pace. But you have a chance to review. And then finally, the actual meeting can happen. Let's go back to my slide deck. Did we lose my slide deck? Oh, no, there it is. I knew I'd do this to myself. I put it to me. There we go. The actual meeting can happen. So the meeting structure is usually about half an hour long. The first start is just an open and check-in. How you doing? How you feeling? I find that 20% of the time, 10% of the time, they're like, not good. I'm emotionally stressed out. Something's going on outside of work. Something's going on in work. And I sometimes will throw out some of this meeting structure just to get into that with them, right? Their morale is at the center of a lot of their productivity. So we'll start there. Things are okay or good, we can review some goals. How did the goals go last week or 2 weeks? What did you hit? What did you miss? By how much? And most importantly, why? Right? So we can problem solve that together. That then gets into the meat of the meeting, right? We spend 10 minutes problem solving the goal ahead. Is what's in your calendar and schedule, is what's in our Gantt chart for production, is that accurate to what we're actually seeing going on? And where do we need to make adjustments so we can be a little bit more proactive than just reacting to it after it's happened, right? And keep things on pace. Let's confirm the goal, make sure we have alignment between us, and then go over any high impact items. These high impact administrative items, do you guys have your team like every day text or call you randomly and then details get lost in all that communication? I will often say to my team, that's great. Let's discuss that on a Monday. Now I get there are things that need to be done within the day, that's fine, but anything that's like not highly urgent, that is a Monday discussion in GSNR. And then I have it all there ready to go and go through it properly. Okay, so this helps the company or the owner manage the production side. We're the production managers. What the production manager often needs is a structure for them to communicate with their people, right? Specifically the customer in a lot of ways. So the first step is to establish a communication plan. What is this? This is essentially expectation setting with your customer, right? Who are the decision makers? Who are not the decision makers? It is not your cousin that came in mid-project, right? Let's sign off on who's actually making decisions here on these projects. What are the communication vehicles that we're going to use? Is it text? Is that acceptable? Or is it through email only so it's documented? Or is it through our client portal in our project management software? What is acceptable communication? And what doesn't count? What are the necessary meetings that we need to have? So just like you're having goal setting review meetings with your project manager, they need to have some sort of project status update meeting with their customer on a regular basis. Again, pre-scheduled for the entire length of the project. When are they going to happen? On Tuesdays at 5 p.m.? Cool. But let's establish that ahead of time. What are the necessary reports that we're going to be going over? What financial reports are we going to be looking at? What project update reports are we going to be looking at? And most importantly, do you as a customer actually know how to read this? How many of you have had change orders that go and go and go, and then you get to the end of the project and they're like, what are you talking about? I owe you 300 grand. Right? They never looked, or you didn't explain it well. Either way, that's where real big problems come. So this will, if nothing else, set up the expectation ahead of time. This will be, where is it here? Project status updates, communication plan. So this is just a agreement between a customer and the stakeholders that be. There's a section for those who will be involved. So this one's got the PM, the client, and the architect. This one gets into the communication matrix. So how will communication happen and where will it happen? What project meetings are going to take place? The project status meeting with the customer, GSR with the owner, those who are witnessing, and then how daily touch points are going to happen. And then project reporting. What are the reports we're going to be looking at? And do we understand how to read them? Signed, owner, PM, owner and PM. So, make sense? It's a simple document, but it's effective because it's what it's doing is it's a forcing function to set expectations before things go on. Okay? Real, so Real's one of our construction coaches. He works with a lot of our members. Any just comments on this?
Yeah, just a couple things. I mean, we in the field have seen this happen in real life, right? Just imagine those moments when a window changes, the size of the window changes. Like, who needs to make that decision? Who needs to be involved? And if we set that ahead of time, we're going to save ourselves time. We're going to save ourselves money, and we'll actually know who is actually paying for this window size ahead of time, right? And so this communication plan, we can define these in a bunch of different areas, but if we can outline it in one spot, it gives us structure to follow as a whole for the whole project, as opposed to just change orders or just, turnover meetings, right? And so that's the idea with these communication plans.
Cool. How many use something like this right now? How many have got this kind of moving? Any comments on it? Like what's working, what's not? What's the?
It sets expectations. And communication is a big kind. We got the text set up on my they dues.
Do you have the time? It's like we will not respond after 6 p.m. So, yeah.
So, there are streets or
Sure.
days. There's a large hole that had a console fire. Yeah, you said yesterday. Console fire, I don't know what. So, yeah, it helps.
Small little things along the way, right? It's interesting when we're so busy just producing every single day, we see the issue and we think about this type of stuff, but we very seldom put it in place. So I encourage you all, this is one document you'll get as well. I encourage you, this is a super simple one. It's not just about the document, it's about having this as a part of your process. You don't have to sign it. You should have them sign it. Yeah, you should have it, yep. There's something to be said about a signature, yeah. All right. So There's a example file on a template. The template looks something like this. A lot of stuff's labeled in yellow so that you can take it and make it your own and get your specifics in there. So that'll come to you at the end. Okay, and then there's project status updates, right? So these are largely done with the customer and the PM. It's done usually on a bi-weekly to weekly basis. So this is an update on what's going on in the project. There's a much bigger benefit if you can use technology along the way. And we'll get into this in a second, but how many of you have a project management software right now? Cool. So eventually you're going to want the updates to come or at least be distributed through this. How many have a customer portal that you're using? Okay, good. Yeah. But the basic idea is that once every week or 2 weeks, we're going to discuss the budget. We're going to discuss the schedule. We're going to discuss key decisions that need to be made. And we're actually going to check in on your satisfaction as a customer. And we're going to do this on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. every week or every 2 weeks, pre-scheduled with your customer. Okay? So I'll give you some more optics on that. Here it is. Looks a little bit like this. So your PM will fill this out, and at the end of the week or at the end of the 2 week period, they're going to write a summary. So what's been going on and their overall just view on what they've seen throughout the week. They've got key milestones. So the plan for completion, pit against the current forecasted completion for when things change, and the actual completion date, and some notes along the way.
Danny, can I jump in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things like best practice, like we run into problems on a regular basis, and like the worst one that we feel like it's out of control, it's like just give us some time, is when the customer finds something before us or feels like they've got to find that, and that's actually a trust item. And so, I mean, we've got this great document, and I'm not trying to undersell it. But we got, like, often we're using software, underutilizing it. So if your software, your CRM allows you to do daily logs, that's best practice. Yeah. The more you do it, the more consistent you are. The fact that you highlight things that are going wrong, you highlight the solutions as you're going, you summarize it at the end of the week, that's actually gaining trust from your customer. And you're going to have less problems of these like extreme moments where your customer's finding the problem before you. And you're like, I just needed like 5 minutes to get to site. Like, stop walking it around.
Yeah. You ever notice like there's a missed expectation somewhere, and then for the rest of the project, they're on you like a hawk? And then it's like, even the project's actually going pretty well, but they're just like finding every single, because trust is lost. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole other session we could run on conflict management if you want. Okay. Yeah, it goes through the activities worked on last week. So similar to the GSR actually, but this is the customer-facing version. This is what we've been doing the last week. This is what's scheduled for next week. These are the change orders that we've documented so far and where things are at, both up and down, and the overall budget and where we're at. This makes hyper clarity between you and the customer of the project. So there's no surprises later on. This is documented in this way. I don't know if this is the exact way you'd want to do this, but it essentially allows you to have a customer kind of like quality rating score, not just on the overall job, but how's the site super doing? How's the job organization and cleanliness, quality of work? This is usually better as like a type form, I think, that they can be submitted every single week and they can fill back out to you, but you can keep tabs on how they're actually feeling, right? I often recommend not it just to be like a little thing they write, but give us a rating out of 10. And then again, if you go reference the Net Promoter Score, it's a very well-known quality rating score metric, you can kind of start to see where they actually feel. Because they'll give you like a 6 or a 7 on something, it usually means there's something up, right? But they're trying to be nice. Any questions on this? That's cool. Okay.
Hey, Danny, what items should be covered on those ones? We got budget, schedule, and key decisions. Like, we can't like undersell like key decisions. Again, we got customers who will wait forever to select what flooring they're going to put in, and they don't realize like that decision needed to be made 2 weeks earlier, right? We can't over communicate those deadlines.
Cool. All right. Anyway, there's another version of the forum. There's your little rating out of 10. Similar idea. Justin's one of our members, but just cool story with him. Like, this was a key focus for him for an entire year. There was other things we did along the way, but he attributes a lot of this leakage to just poor communication, and took his net from about 3% to 20 in a year. A lot of our profit is locked up in poor decisions, and if we're not strong enough to hold against those, and we kind of say, yeah, okay, we'll eat that one, right? That's all profit to the bottom line. Number 4, the proper use of software. So I asked this earlier, but how many of you have a project management software and actually put your projects into the software every single time? Okay, keep your hands up. How many of you have it consistently updated? About half. So key things, if you don't have a software, and if you do, the key things I find are the most effective elements is your project workflows, obviously, right? So it's either done in Kanban or Gantt chart. Just those interdependencies matter, and they need to be updated on a weekly basis as you go through these GSR meetings, as you go through these client updates. Your work in progress reports help you obviously with over and under billing and help you see leakage, bleeding jobs. Production tracking, this I find helps a lot with GSNR. If we're doing goal setting and review on different parts of the project, this will help us track and see what's really going on. And then our daily logs for our team and for our own securities long term, but often for our customer, so they can stay in touch and see what's going on both with the job and the photos and all the things, but also keep a pretty good financial awareness of what's happening. Rael, any comments on just like project management software and use with the members or?
I think I didn't see the crowd, but I'm assuming most people have some sort of CRM project management software. Like these are expensive. It doesn't feel like it because it's just a regular bill for you guys. But we underutilize it and we try to like force our program, our system to do, we force the program that we adopt to do what the system is trying to do. So we're just trying to make it work. I'm going to say adapt to the program that you're using, right? If it wants you to update on Tuesday, update on Tuesday, who cares? Because you're going to utilize it. So like embrace what's there because it's there to make your job easier. Better communicator, tighter controls, and you're not going to be spending money like all over the place with like 15 different things.
I have met with Builder Trends specifically quite a bit. I've gone to their head office and I work with their CS team. They always say to me, Danny, the number one thing is not getting people onto the software, it's getting them to understand their own workflow so that we can actually have this stuff used effectively. And if there's one improvement that they would just wish, they're like, Danny, can you just tell them when you meet them? Is just know where these elements can fit within your workflow so they're actually used properly. Because I think a lot of people sign up, they have used 1 or 2 features, and then that's kind of it, is what they constantly are seeing. And they're just saying if we could only, and so a lot of their CS team is trying to train all the contractors best they can, but we work a lot with them as well on just like, what is your workflow? Do you have it defined, first off? If it's not defined, we'll have to define it. And then from there, what feature fits into what element of the workflow so things actually go off without constant reiteration of trying to get other people to do it for you. Okay. So the concept of employment agreements. Does this make sense? Some accountability, some structure, some defined roles around what your job is, what it is not, some numbers baked into those. The ability then to build in more of a performance culture with your team, doing goal setting review meetings and kind of turning from more of a coach with your people than just their boss, and giving them a chance to make more money as a result. And allowing you too to step back. And one of the biggest things I watch with a lot of our members is they step back, but they step back too early without much in place. Things get messy, they jump back in, and then they get this limiting belief that's like, I can't really do this without being on like a hawk. I find GSR meetings are a pretty big unlock for a lot of people where they realize I can have just enough oversight to keep things moving and see issues as they come, but not so much that that person feels smothered and can't have the independence to start to do it themselves. Communication plans, again, established ahead of time and then gone throughout the project to avoid long-term issues or end-of-project issues. And then using the software to back all of this up. A lot of this eventually makes its way into software, right? We build a lot of paperwork for our members so that they can actually get something started, but eventually I want to get a lot, especially the reporting done all through software. Okay, thought we would have extra time. Tomorrow I'm going to talk more on hiring, but how many of you need to hire a project manager in the next 6 months, a year? Cool. So I'm going to go through a pretty step-by-step approach, everything from how do you identify who you're even looking for, to how do you drop the right kind of ads, where do you display those ads, how do you attract people into a conversion call, what should that conversion call be, what do you interview them on, what personality traits are you actually looking for, and how do you run that all the way through to a decision. So recruiting, for me, I used to do, so back in the day when I worked for this franchisor, the last thing I did with them was I was head of HR for Western Canada, and I spent a lot of time finding franchisees actually for which was essentially almost like a glorified project manager. And I'll go through that process tomorrow. One of the things thought I would just throw out to you guys, when it comes to hiring, how many of you are looking for personality traits over skill when it comes to PM? What traits do you think matter most here? You can just yell them out if you see one or two that are like pretty important. Leadership? Yep. Values? Yep. Yes, problem solving. Huge. Introspection? Yeah. Yep, they're going to be dealing with a lot of conflict. What else? There's one that people often miss, and I can explain this one. These are the ones that we often look for. Introspection's not on there, but I can see a valid point for it being on there. Have you guys ever heard of the value fundamental? It's the ability to handle stress in pursuit of a goal. And one of the biggest indicators that I saw, especially working with franchisees who are managing projects all day long, running around, trying to keep customers happy, trying to keep, their employees on task, trying to manage the budget, is their ability to handle stress in pursuit of a goal. Have any of you ever had a project manager or somebody who's just plays a key like management role in your company just go MIA when you need them most? They fold. They get into a fight or flight response. One of the biggest things you can look for with anyone in your company, really, that's in charge of any type of management or high stress, high intensity situations, they need the ability to handle stress in pursuit of a goal. So we'll go into a little bit of how you find that, but often I'm looking at past performance to predict future behavior. And when you interview people, you see it in them. You see they have a constant pattern. You work with lots of people, so I'm sure you see this, but do you see people have a constant pattern when things get really tough, suddenly they're just like, oh, I couldn't do it. This is all the reasons why, and they're externalizing. People will repeat themselves over and over and over again. Past performance always predicts future behavior. So we'll get into some of the interview fundamentals as well, but we'll talk a bit about what to look for and how to reverse this type of stuff so we know what ads to post and what will attract that kind of person. How do you pre-screen for that on the phone? And how do you build an entire recruiting funnel around an ideal candidate? You guys know the concept like ideal customer? Like who's my ideal customer? It's this person. Okay, we'll build my brand around it. We also should have an ideal candidate for each major role that we have in our organization. So we'll cover that tomorrow, I think at 11:30. We've got some time. Yeah, 11:30 you'll be here if you want to get into that. Okay, so next steps. I tried to keep this pretty bare bones for you guys and give you kind of like some simple things to take. But we want to implement some of this, right? My biggest thought on this is progress over perfection. Like I said, pick one thing that you want to do from all this that you feel is relevant. Could be, hey, let's take this employment agreement, let's rip it apart a bit, and let's see if we can actually get it in for our PMs. Or maybe, hey, let's start to do a GSR process. If you're ready for that, that is a massive game changer for companies. Or it could be the way you do communication plans. Maybe we just tweak it a little bit, or we don't have one. Let's put it in place. Or maybe it's time to start using your WIP reports or something in your CRM project management software that you've been not utilizing. For most of us, if you haven't done anything or most of this yet, I would say start with the PM role and start by defining it. Whether you need to recruit for another one, this helps a lot with targeting, or you already have one or two in the business, this is like a great first step. These are just some of our members, but we've, for 10 years, been doing this. We've had a lot of construction companies go through our program. But what I find fascinating is it's working. Like, we have businesses growing substantially. We have net profit growing. We have work hours going down with owners. I find a lot of us, like, and I'm like this too. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a doer by heart, right? I used to have the motto in my life was like, I may not be able to outsmart you, but I will certainly outwork you. And that's how I lived my life for a long time. The franchisor I worked with really shifted me. And now I'm not perfect to this day. I still have a business partner who is a details wizard, and I am still the ADD entrepreneur. But I have realized that if to get past this invisible barrier that a lot of us have is I can't do this myself. Like, I need to rely on a system, and to rely on a system, I need to build something. So we've worked with a lot of companies over a lot of years. This is just one example, but we see some pretty unique growth that happens. We have about 600 businesses right now. So it's about, all of them combined, this is our revenue, all of them combined is about $2 billion in construction revenue a year. What I find really neat is their revenue is growing, but their net profit is growing at a substantially larger rate because there's all these inefficiencies. And the reason it says 12 months in the program, because in the first 12 months is when we find all these inefficiencies. There's a lot of tweaking we can do in that first year. But our whole goal as a company is just how do we transform honest, hardworking contractors into thriving entrepreneurs? Because I think a lot of us, we started in this trade because we're good at it. We've got a skill and a gift that a lot of people have loved. We've started to maybe grow a little bit beyond our natural ability to run the business itself, and it takes away from us. Like, I've got 3 kids at home. I've got a wife waiting for me after this trip. And my goal is to never put this business in front of him or her and their time. And I think for a lot of us, that's, and I'm not perfect. Like, for a lot of us, we're guilty of that along the way. So we do our best to provide some balance along the way. these are the things we work on. So there's a lot that we get into, but it really is a mechanism more than just an individual topic by topic discussion with contractors. So we want to first understand their financials. So the sales, the production, the financials of the organization. So we get into QuickBooks, we get into the project management software, and we start to see the trends. We build dashboards so we can see goal versus actual for the entire company, not just by individual role, but we'll start with the company. We can start to hold the owner accountable to their targets. We then build those numbers down into each individual role. So what I was showing you earlier with that organizational chart, we start to think role by role, what should every person be in charge of when it comes to their numbers, their KPIs. We build that into employment agreements, and then we utilize that to help define an ideal candidate profile. We use that ideal candidate profile to reverse engineer the recruiting process, right? We then look at that same ideal candidate profile and we start to build out the training process. So what is the training program for each individual role that can be documented? We then look at the sales and marketing process and start to make sure we have a way to create some predictable revenue. What I find a lot of us do is we get busy with big projects and we produce them until we create a gap in the schedule and it's almost too late. So we keep accountability on lead gen, estimates being done on at least monthly rhythm so we can make sure we have enough in the hopper along the way. And then we wrap all of that into a strategic plan. So for every company we work with, we have like a 3-year-long vision of where we want to go, both numerically, but also all the details about why and all the initiatives required, all the build-outs required. And then just like you guys manage projects, we manage companies. And we slowly build that into existence over time. We call it the contractor growth method, but it's a mechanism where all these things work together, one tied to the next. If all I did was give people videos and systems and templates, I don't think a lot would happen. We have a really cool coaching staff, Rial is one of them, that help walk our members through all of this, work with them on a bi-weekly basis, basically holding tension. So we actually kind of become your boss a little bit, and we're holding tension to the numbers and the implementation processes. All of our members know each other, so they have a connection online, and then we have some pretty cool events. And then we've done our best to create the content for you. For years, we've done this for 10 years. For years, it's like, okay, you need to create an SOP for this role. And they're like, 3 months later, it's not done. So we have created construction playbooks so that every role is documented, right from the ICP, the ideal candidate profile, the employment agreement, the job ad, the actual standard operating procedures for each part of the project that they're in charge of, and it's all tied back to their overall role that they're in charge of. So we can create training plans pretty quick out of this. Cool. So, of everything I talked about, what was your biggest takeaway today? What's something you could actually go do that's tangible? What do you guys think? Explain. Give me an idea. Who do you have on the team? What do you want to do with it?
Well, I am the project manager right now, which I'm 1,000% confident I can find somebody to do it better than me. But our project management meeting now is more of just like putting out fires.
Right.
And I think I run the company with my wife, so I guess my thought process is implementing the GSR, but sort of giving her the authority to review me as the project manager.
Cool, right?
While we're trying to hire for that role.
Yeah, you establish the structure, which is actually huge. And that's pretty mature of you to say, like, I have that with my business partner. He's the CEO of Breakthrough Academy. I am running our sales and marketing team, and I report to him. And I'm stoked to do it. And as much as sometimes we're equals, I'm like, it doesn't matter, man. Like, we need to establish this as a structural way of running our company so that if I ever replace myself, there's an established way to do it in a rhythm. So, awesome. What else? What else could you take from today? Sure.
The weekly goal setting, what's your goals for next week, and then reviewing them. I think that's a really good point.
It's simple. You know what's funny? I look at Breakthrough Academy, what we do as a company, and I see members that have been with us for like 9 years, and I'm like, why are you still here? Because you clearly have everything you need. And it's that. It's the community, but it's like, I like to have a strategic plan. I like to have that strategic plan reviewed quarterly. I like to have someone working with me every 2 weeks to hold me accountable. And that makes me do that with my team. Otherwise, they fall out of practice. But yeah, it becomes a rhythm to how a company operates. Since I was 18 years old, I've been doing GSNRs. Had GSRs done with early on when I was a franchisee, and I've been doing them as a GM, doing them when I was working with Western Canada, and doing them now a college pro. Give me one more. Yeah, go ahead.
I think just start from the basic and values, the core values for a company. we never said them, and we recently, sat down and look at our own values, and then going back and doing those team meetings every week, every other week, that kind of refreshes the mind on each one of the team, to know, well, this is where we're heading. This is our core values, and just repeat it and be constant with it.
Yeah, they're in the top of the GSR form, actually. What are good values good for? What are some things that you guys, who's built core values for your company? They're written down. What do you find they do? There's a couple of things that they do. What do you guys think? Yeah, it's like accountability around a certain way of being. That's almost sometimes indescribable, but you can see it. What else? This is what they help you make the hardest decisions, right? It's like, man, are we actually going to spend that money on that? Are we actually going to fire that top? Who's ever had like a high performer that provides a lot of ROI to the business, but pisses everybody off in the process, right? It's a core values issue. And that's a hard decision to make, but when you pit it against core values, it's very clear. Cool. Okay. Here's the templates we'll give you guys. Just grab your phones, you can scan and get them. So this will give you that employment agreement, the goal setting review dashboard, communications plan overlay, and the project status update report. If you're interested to chat with us more on how we can help you, you'll see a little box that says, yes, I'd like to chat with BTA more. Just let us know. It starts as a 20-minute, half-hour phone conversation. Our team is an assessment team. As much as they do sales, they're focused on getting the right people. How many of you screen your clients? We do too. We have a certain size we look for. We have a certain place in business that we look for. We don't work with startups. Usually when someone's around $1 million to 10 million, it's kind of our ideal range. And we find that we need about 5 hours a week with you to be able to build a lot of this into place. So you may not have it fully now, but we need to see that that's actually possible. So we'll spend a bit of time getting to know you first. And then from there, we'll do an actual assessment, sit down with you live on Zoom, go through your financials, go through your org structures, go through what you do have in place or lack thereof, which is totally cool. We see it all the time. And we'll start to see if we actually have a path that would help. So if you want to do that, you'll see a little option to do that.
Danny, we're doing good on time, so
Yeah, we've got 15 minutes. We can do some questions. If you guys want to chat with us at the booth, I'll be here all day tomorrow until probably 5 o'clock today. We'll be at booth 847. You can come chat with me and the team. And yeah, we have time for questions if you guys want to get them. Let's see what else I have in here. Cool.
Are you ready to take a question?
I am ready.
Okay.
You can take them too, Riel. Okay.
I had a question. For the project management you were tracking revenue produced. I think you had like 2.5 or whatever in there. I guess I'm trying to wrap my mind around if they don't have control over sales, how does that work out?
Yeah, you'll see in the agreement we give you one of the notes that says produced required revenue on time and on budget. So net, if you don't have the schedule for them, it does change things a little bit, but the target is 2.5. They know that. But what is given to them needs to be done on time and on budget.
Yeah, and I think a way to like understand or to like interpret that is like, why would you even have a project manager? Right? At some point, you can get to a certain size in which you need another project manager. And that's that threshold that says, oh, my team can handle about 3 million or 4 million or 2.5 million. That's the measurement to say, we hired you because we want you to produce that amount. Now, the year might be a tough year, but the reality is they're producing only a certain amount, right? But in terms of bonuses, that's where you can be a bit more creative on it for sure.
And maybe a quick follow-up on that. Is there a gross revenue point where project management makes the most sense? I mean, it depends. I think for me, it's a little bit lower because I don't love the position. So I'm willing to like eat some of the cost to offload it.
Riel, do you have a comment? Like, so there is a bit of a pattern, yes. You can comment and I'll give a thought on this too. Well, what size should a business be at and what gross margin should it be making to be able to afford a PM?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be coming at it with it depends lens, because like full custom versus like production builder versus like renovations, they're all going to produce a bit different. But I don't know if this is where you're going to go, but especially for yourself, like where do you add the most value in your business is where you'll find that if you can spend more time selling, right? That's probably the most value you're going to add to your business. That like the threshold to hire a project manager is pretty low. Like if you could just spend more time selling, you're going to be a much more successful business. Is that?
Yeah, and I was going to say a role should create an ROI. So if you're hiring somebody to work 40 hours a week in the business, that should displace something, namely maybe you, which should create a different trajectory than where it was heading without that person. And so if you're doing, $1.5 million now and you're like, to afford this person, I need to be doing 2.5, well, then that needs to be the plan, and there needs to be a production plan for that person to start producing at that level. Now there's some trust on you, right? And your ability to go perform, but what I've seen for years and years, even myself in doing this, how many of you right now are doing tasks that are probably $30, $40, maybe $50 an hour tasks? You're worth $100, $200, $300, $400 an hour. So it is a huge opportunity cost in this. Actually, I'm going to talk about it tomorrow, but there is like a calculatable way to look at how many hours a person is potentially could be creating for your business. If you don't have them recruited, what's lost in revenue? And then there's this question of like, do I get the work first or do I hire the person first? I will push a lot of people and say, go hire the person first and you will be forced to get the work. It's a good motivator. Otherwise, especially if you stay stuck in the safety rhythm for too many years, it's like, go get that person. We're going to go figure out the work. Questions? Other questions? It's good? Cool. All right. Well, that's it. If you need anything else from me, we'll be at the booth. If you have questions, happy to stick around and ask or answer them in the back of the room. If you need the resources, there's your QR code. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah.
Thanks so much for watching. If you thought today's episode was awesome, it probably means you should subscribe. You're going to get more Contractor Evolution episodes in your feed, and I'll see you next week.